Welcome to Fear and Greed, business news you can use. Today, the federal government dumps energy rebates as the government rethinks its reform agenda. Communications Minister Anika Wells in more hot water over publicly funded flights for her family, and the world watches as Australia's social media ban kicks off. Plus, close to 1 million Australians now work 2 jobs, and Qantas finally gets its full fleet of A380s back in the sky. It is Tuesday, the 9th of December 2025. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, plenty to get through today. The main story this morning, Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers yesterday said federal energy rebates will end at the end of the year, ruling out a second extension.
The Energy Bill Relief Fund initially provided a universal $300 household rebate for the 2024-25 financial year. That was paid in quarterly instalments. Then the government added another $150 extension from July to December. That's at the end of this December. But that is where it will all end. Rebates for household electricity bills has cost the Commonwealth almost $7 billion since they were first introduced. Yesterday, Jim Chalmers said, no more, all over.
It's done. Now, his comments come as speculation increases about major reform in next year's federal budget, which we might get a little hint about next week when the Mid-Year Economic and Fiscal Outlook, which has the catchiest acronym of all time, MYEFO, is released.
Yes, there's a bit to this. Government spending has been propping up the economy. We know that. We saw it in the national accounts last week. Experts say it's time for the private sector to take over. That should definitely help productivity in Australia. That's a good thing. Now, a report from Deloitte, which I reckon Chris Richardson and the team, perhaps the best budget analysts there are. It was released yesterday, shows a likely drop in the budget deficit this financial year, but an increase in the next financial year. Budgets are really simple ways of showing how much a government is supporting the economy. So the Deloitte report suggests the government won't be pulling back. So if you're getting a bigger budget deficit, that's saying that the budget is supporting the economy even more. Anyway, the point is we're hoping that won't happen. On top of all this, we had Prime Minister Anthony Albanese saying over the past 48 hours that the May budget would be the starting point for long-lasting economic and social reform. They have a big enough mandate. If any government should be in a position to undertake serious economic and social reform, it's this government, and Albanese is talking about that.
What would it be? You know how I know that you hate speculating, Sean, so I'm going to put you on the spot to speculate. Something of this kind of magnitude, if he's talking about long-lasting economic and social reform, we know that it's not GST related or anything, or really taxation related, is it? Because he's kind of ruled out those big ticket items without going to another election. So it really does leave it to more social reforms than anything.
Yeah, I mean, this government has done a lot in terms of aged care, in terms of childcare, the reform, the NDIS. Now, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be settled in all that. So I don't know whether he's talking about that sort of thing. You can't have economic reform without having tax reform. It's not fair income reform unless it's tax reform. So who knows there? Social reform, I don't know. Banning 16-year-olds from or under 16-year-olds from using social media. That's social reform.
That certainly is, which we will get to a little bit later on, because we need to mention the fact it is a very significant day in the calendar today, Sean, a big day for interest rate watchers. I don't know whether it's fair to say this is a significant day on the calendar, actually. That might be overstating it. The RBA board is unlikely to actually move on the official cash rate at 2:30 today, though it is very possible that Governor Michelle Bullock might just hint that the next move in interest rates is going to be up.
So that's what HSBC Chief Economist Paul Bloxham, a former Reserve banker, thinks could happen. BT Shares' David Bassanese thinks a board member advocating a rate hike today, I'll say it again, a rate hike today isn't out of the question. AMP Shane Oliver, who's been very, very supportive of rate cuts, now thinks rates are on hold, and he wouldn't be surprised if the Reserve Bank sounds a little more hawkish, i.e. a little more leaning towards rate rises. We'll find out at 2:30 today.
Indeed. The ASX, how did we go yesterday?
The S&P ASX 200 closed down just a touch to 8,624 points. Telco's doing best, mining and utility companies worst. Banks were mixed. ANZ and National Australia Bank sold off. Wesfarmers was lower. CSL was higher. The big miners were lower. Telstra jumped 1.5%, best of the mega caps. And Michael, a shout out to the mighty Aussie dollar. And I do this with no holidays planned whatsoever going forward. It hit a 6-month high. Of course it did. 66.5 US cents. No holidays planned. So what's it do? Start appreciating.
That's right. It's called the Aylmer Index. It's basically whenever you're going overseas, the Aussie dollar sinks, and whenever you're staying here, it starts to climb. Nice.
Very frustrating.
Yeah, of course it is. Sean, the pressure is building on Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to take action over Communications Minister Anika Wells' travel schedule. We've been talking about this. We talked about it yesterday. We talked about it last week. And this should be a big time for Anika Wells, the Communications Minister, who's overseeing the social media ban that kicks in tomorrow. But it just every day, more is coming out about these travel claims. The latest being that she billed taxpayers almost $9,000 for return flights so that her husband could attend the 3 AFL grand finals that took place while she was Minister for Sport. Her 3 children also received publicly funded flights to Melbourne on each occasion.
Yeah. You put it well. Another day, another revelation. Yesterday was that in 2022, 23, 24, she and her husband flew from Brisbane to Melbourne for the AFL Grand Final at the expense of the taxpayer. Other controversial trips involving her husband in recent times: a trip to the F1 in Melbourne last year, a trip to Adelaide, which included a birthday party for a friend, another trip to Thredbo this year during the ski season. Now, family reunion entitlements permit federal MPs to claim as many as 3 return business class flights per year for members of their family, on the proviso that the travel is between the MP's electorate and a destination other than Canberra. Maybe she isn't outside the rules, maybe. But given questions over her travel, particularly the cost of her trips to New York this year and then a couple of years ago to Switzerland, France, these other domestic trips, she's treading a very fine line. And of course, opposition leader Susan Lee, arguably, she did not break any rules when she went to the Gold Coast a few years back when she was a minister under Malcolm Turnbull. While she was there, she happened to buy an investment unit and she actually got kicked off the front bench for it. So she's not going to have any sympathy whatsoever for Anika Wells. And, the pub test here, I'm actually torn about this, Michael, because politicians give up so much of their life, and I think to have their spouses and kids along is not a bad thing. Yeah. But there's a limit.
And I do find it frustrating that it does take the attention away from the big issue that Anika Wells has been pushing, which is the social media ban, which should be front and centre this week for her. Instead, every day and every hour, it seems, there is something else coming out. But we will get to that in a little bit, Sean. We have much to cover, much to discuss. Back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, former National Party member and leader Barnaby Joyce yesterday confirmed he will join One Nation and run for the Senate in New South Wales at the next election.
He made the announcement appearing on a Tamworth radio station with One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. Tamworth is in Joyce's seat of New England. He intends to remain the member until the next election due by 2028. Joyce said Hanson was a fellow traveller and was keen to move on after several months of speculation. Now, current Nationals leader David Littleproud didn't miss him. He said Joyce was turning his back on his electorate. He also suggested that he wanted to be leader of One Nation and was doing it for himself. No one in the Nats was particularly happy about it, though Barnaby seemed reasonably happy, if he is ever happy.
Yeah. There's certainly no surprises here, are there?
No.
We've known this has been coming for so long now. Now, close to 1 million Australian workers hold more than one job, with those in community and personal care most likely to have multiple employers.
According to the Bureau of Statistics, there were 973,000 multiple job holders in the September quarter. That's about 6.5% of people employed. That compares to 14 million single job holders. It's higher than 3 months earlier. Around 7.6% were women, 5.6% were men. Now, in the 25 years before COVID, right, 5 or 6% of the workforce held 2, 3, 4 jobs. That tumbled during COVID. Then it surged to 2022 and has never reversed back to normal. I speculate it's a cost of living thing. People need the money, and when you have people in the community and personal care are most likely to have multiple employers, that backs it up because those people do incredible jobs yet get paid relatively poorly.
Yeah.
So you would think it is a cost of living issue.
Yeah, it does sound like it. At National Storage, a listed real estate investment trust that owns more than 290 self-storage facilities across Australia and New Zealand, has agreed to a $4 billion takeover offer by a consortium of private equity players.
The consortium is led by Brookfield and GIC. The offer values the group at $6.7 billion when you add in the debt. The consortium bid for National Storage last month. Then it went into due diligence. National Storage's board has backed the bid. Chair Anthony Keane saying the all-cash deal delivered attractive value and certainty. The group's share price rose yesterday, though jumped sharply late last month when the bid was announced.
Now, it's not an exaggeration to say that the world is watching very closely Australia's social media ban for under 16-year-olds. It kicks off tomorrow. You've got the New York Times, you've got the BBC, and a whole stack of other international publications reporting on the world. Basically, this is the first time this has ever happened anywhere. We've got Oprah Winfrey commenting on it. You've got US kind of actors like Chris Pratt and others all kind of chiming in on it, applauding Australia. It's getting a lot of attention.
Sure is. From tomorrow, children under the age of 16 are banned from having social media accounts. Social media giants or social media apps that are affected: Facebook, Instagram, Kik, Reddit, Snapchat, Threads, TikTok, Twitch, X, and YouTube. Now, they've all implemented new rules and processes to prevent children accessing social media sites. The onus is on the big tech companies, not the parents, to enforce the ban. If reasonable steps are not taken by the social media sites, they face fines of up to $49.5 million. It is not an understatement to say the world is watching this. You and I read fairly widely across international publications, and it is everywhere. Now, some countries, Malaysia, for example, has already passed similar legislation based on the Australian legislation. The European Union said it's watching and learning from Australia, though it does say it will take steps towards it. Denmark's already promised to ban under 15-year-olds on the back of what we've done. Emmanuel Macron, in recent times, has said if the EU doesn't do something, he will do something. This is a big issue. I wish parents well. Maybe I'll just leave it at that because... Yep. Oh, wow. I'm fortunate enough, in a sense, that my youngest child is now 17. I don't have to enforce this. You will, Michael, although your kids are quite young, so maybe they haven't really got social media accounts yet.
They're still a few years off social media anyway.
So wow, you got a 14-year-old and you're telling him not to be on social media tomorrow. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now, Qantas, Sean, finally has all. This is a front runner for my favourite story of the week. It's finally got all of its A380s back in the air, with the 10th Super Jumbo returning to Sydney after nearly 6 years spent in a combination of storage and in heavy maintenance.
Named Paul McGuinness after one of the airline's founders, the A380 spent 3 years in the California desert due to the COVID pandemic, then another 2.5 years at Abu Dhabi undergoing maintenance to ensure its safe return to flying. I want to know how it got from California to Abu Dhabi. But
I was about to ask the same question. Can you imagine being the pilot volunteering to do it?
We think it's okay.
Maintenance?
Yeah, we think it's okay. Off you go.
But let's just do a skeleton crew just in case.
It's the largest maintenance check completed in Qantas's 105-year history, involving 100,000 hours of work, representing a significant milestone for its engineering and fleet renewal programs. It's also had a full cabin refresh. Now, all of the A380s in the Qantas fleet have 14 first class, 70 business class, 60 premium and economy, and 341 economy seats over the upper and lower decks. The aircraft, which hadn't been on Australian soil for 2,000 days, touched down late last week. It'll serve as an operational spare. So imagine all that work for a spare. During the Christmas period from January 1, it will boost international capacity by allowing A380 or daily A380s flying on Qantas's Sydney-Dallas route, according to The Australian. Quite a feat to get it back in the air.
Yeah, sure is. Turning to international news now, Sean, and Elon Musk's charitable foundation grew larger than ever last year, but for the fourth year in a row, the huge charity failed to give away the minimum amount required by law.
And according to a report in the New York Times, the donations it did make went largely to charities closely tied to Musk himself. The foundation is now one of the largest in the country, more than $14 billion in assets. But unlike some other billionaires who have dedicated their non-profits to broader social or political causes, Musk in recent years used his non-profit in ways that tracked the interests of his businesses. For example, in 2024, the Musk Foundation gave away $474 million, more than it had in any previous year. But more than three-quarters of that, $370 million, went to a non-profit in Texas, led by Musk's top aide. That non-profit appears to provide a benefit to his business empire because it operates a primary school in a rural area where many of his employees live. It's right near a cluster of Musk's companies. A higher proportion of Musk's foundation gifts in 2024 went to those closely connected charities than in any year since 2020, according to an analysis by The Times.
All right. Yeah, there's a bit in that. Don't know whether all of that passes the pub test.
No, that one doesn't pass the pub test either.
This is not a good day for the pub test. I tell you what is good though, Sean. You've got an interview coming up next, Fear and Greed Q&A, with Henry Yoshida from US fintech Rocket Dollar.
Yes. So what Henry broadly does is help retirees or people with what we would call DIY super funds, the equivalent in the US, invest in alternative assets. So we talked to him about what's the outlook for some of those alternative assets, for private equity, for private credit, for gold, and, why the old equities and bonds might not be the way to go. A fascinating chat.
Yeah, indeed. And a great insight into the way that it works in the US and potentially then what we could see flowing through to Australia then as well. It's coming up next, and Rocket Dollar is a great supporter of Fear and Greed. It is in your Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au, which is where you sign up for the free daily newsletter. And there's a link in today's show notes for that one as well. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 9th of December, 2025. Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.